As you can see, Rosberg actually going up the inside there. We have just about defended that around the outside as Rosberg just backed out in the end. But now running out wide once again with the understeer and just the oversteer and just everything really affects him here. He's lost position to Rosberg, Raikkonen and Lewis Hamilton. Bearing down on him now, going to make the move up the inside, going to the inside line. And we have made that move just about in on the next lap for a set of intermediate tyres. All the AI pitted on the previous lap, so we could actually make some gains here. Now Bottas, I think, is determined to make the move around the outside. In fact, he's done that. He's just done us around the outside there. That is incredibly surprising. Bottas, unfortunately, has rejoined ahead of us, so we're going to have to try and do some work out. But the main threat from behind was the other Williams of Felipe Nasr. He was absolutely on it. So we're going to breeze past Felipe Nasr here, almost making contact. So close there, actually, to making contact. How he didn't make contact there, I will never know. But anyway, guys, it's going to be a good result today. I wouldn't say it was a bad result whatsoever. 7th place, you know, a little disappointing, I suppose, considering where we started. Hey guys, what is up? It is StockMat1998 here, and I am back with part 9 of my Felipe Nasr career mode here at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. And just like Austria, the weather around Britain is questionable, so there could be some rain to spice things up throughout the weekend. We've got to wait and see whether that happens or not. Felipe Nasr is confident going into this weekend with some new upgrades that he's got in his Sauber car. Without further ado, let's get into the qualifying report. Will Stevens impressed the British crowd as he dragged his man Marisha car to 16th place. This was at the expense of the two Williams cars, who both suffered engine problems before the start of qualifying and were therefore unable to set a time. The other Brit of Jenson Button out-qualified teammate Fernando Alonso to seal 12th, a result that left him in a confident mood heading into tomorrow's Grand Prix. Lewis had a very mediocre session with both drivers failing to impress. Carlos Sainz edged into the top 10, but teammate Verstappen suffered more reliability problems and didn't get out on the track in time to set a competitive lap. Sergio Perez out-qualified Nico Hulkenberg for the first time this season as the Silverstone-based team continued their impressive qualifying display. Lining up directly ahead of them were the two Red Bulls, with Ricciardo getting the edge. Ferrari were unable to match Mercedes when it mattered and would have to settle for row 2. Felipe Nasr picked up another very respectable qualifying result of 5th place, with Ericsson down in 11th. But it was the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton who ended as the happier Mercedes driver as he sealed pole position for his home Grand Prix.
Welcome to Silverstone, home of the British Grand Prix. This iconic track held the very first World Championship Formula One race back in 1950, and it's a firm favourite amongst the fans and drivers alike. We knew this was a track that suited the Mercedes well, but no one would have expected that Lewis Hamilton would have created such a gap to his rivals in qualifying. If he stays out of trouble and the car continues to perform, well, victory should surely be a formality.
When we spoke to him earlier, he felt that this was a great opportunity to go on and win, but he knows he still has plenty of work to do. Anything can happen in the race, so you have to keep your feet on the ground until you take the checkered flag.
It's been a really disappointing season so far for Red Bull. They aren't getting the points that they believe the car is worthy of.
Red Bull have clearly suffered the most from the change of regulations. The car is still a good car, but they say the performance of their new hybrid power unit is letting them down. You can guarantee they're working hard with Renault to find a way to bridge the gap to the competition.
So once again, another very decent qualifying performance for Felipe Nasr to seal 5th position on the grid for today's British Grand Prix. As you can see by the skies, it's quite sunny at the moment, but I can tell you guys that rain is expected. You know what that means on this game? Absolute madness. So I would tune in or stay tuned until the end of today's episode of The Engineer. We'll be keeping us updated throughout the Grand Prix, so we'll know exactly when the rain's supposed to fall. But for now, we're going to start on the option tyres, hopefully extend the stint out depending on when the rain's supposed to fall. If it does fall earlier on, so we're going to hope to extend it out to whenever the rain falls. But now, the lights are illuminated by the drivers now for the British Grand Prix. And the lights are out now, and we are away here for today's race at Silverstone. In fact, getting off to a very poor start. Ricciardo's already made the jump on us. Once again, we're not getting off to the best start at all, but Ricciardo already overtaken us here, going down into the Abbey corner. But now Ricciardo brake checks us there, and we have to almost go into the back of it. And I think we may actually have front wing damage. I'm not 100% sure yet. Obviously, we'll see the effects of those going into the next few corners. Doesn't seem to really be affecting us too much at the moment, but I was going to say that Perez in 7th place at the moment. Another very good qualifying performance for the Force India team. Both Perez and Hulkenberg in the top 10, but Kvyat has made his way past Sergio Perez. But I really don't know what Ricciardo's doing there. But as you can see on the graphic, we've got an end plate damage here. So one of our end plates is damaged. We may have to pit in, but as you can see, going into the Brooklands corner now, we're getting all sorts of understeers. So maybe we do have to pit in at the end of this lap for a new front wing. Huge mistake there from Daniel Ricciardo. I don't know why he brake checked us so badly there. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what he was thinking. Really was a stupid driving there for Daniel Ricciardo. But as you can see behind, Perez going to try and make a move up the inside of Danny Kvyat. In fact, no, going into Cops now, so much understeer. We're going to have to pit at the end of this lap, no question whatsoever. So already our race has pretty much been ruined before it's even started. But obviously with the rain due to fall, we can maybe take advantage of that. But now behind, absolute madness is unfolding with Perez, Kvyat and Hulkenberg trying to overtake us. But now, looking behind, in fact, there's forcing a collision there. Hulkenberg and Perez, Matt Tucson, look away now. The two Force Indians have collided out of the exit of the Beckett's complex. And I'm not sure what that was because I think we sort of caused that really. Slowing down Perez hugely, and I think he must have just turned into Nico Hulkenberg. But we are pitting in at the end of this lap, obviously, because just look at that understeer there. Rusto, we cannot cope with this for another 9 or 10 laps. Or however long we were going to extend the stint out by. But already, the race, what a crazy start to this race. Honestly, a Force India collision, us crashing into the back of Daniel Ricciardo, all caused by Daniel Ricciardo. In fact, actually, look at that. In fact, there's Williams mechanics coming out as well. So, obviously, there must have been more collisions happening behind. So, more craziness unfolding on this first lap. Obviously, Force India mechanics out for either Perez or Hulkenberg. In fact, the Mano Mauricio mechanics out as well. So, obviously, there was also a collision further back. I believe Bottas actually did start quite far back as well. So, maybe he has a collision with Roberto Merhi or Will Stevens. We're going to have to wait and see. In fact, I'm not even sure whether it is Valtteri. It might even be Felipe Nasr. But now, looking at a replay of this whole incident here. Now, Perez was going to try and make a move around the outside. But, in fact, he's squirming around all over the place, in fact. Perez almost making the move up the inside of Beckett's, but once again, we're just understeering out completely. And then Perez outbrakes himself and turns into the path of Nico Hulkenberg. So in the end, that was Sergio Perez's fault. In fact, you can't really blame us for that. Although we were sort of the catalyst in that. We did sort of cause all that chaos to ensue. And you can see Max Verstappen on board with him now. So what happened to Max Verstappen? Was he involved in some of this? In fact, Hulkenberg rejoined the track there, and in fact gets a complete whack there from Nico Hulkenberg. So really poor driving there for Nico Hulkenberg. Just has no spatial awareness whatsoever. Now Valtteri Bottas here. What happened to him? So Bottas, obviously, he had to pit at the end of the lap as well. In fact, it was Bottas that had to pit. He got a huge whack from Nico Hulkenberg. I'm assuming he got front wing damage from that. And Bottas indeed had to pit in at the end of lap 1 for a new front wing and a new set of tyres, obviously. But now looking on board from the Force India of Nico Hulkenberg, Kvyat was very lucky to avoid all of this. But then Hulkenberg, yeah, I don't think there was really much Perez could have done. But on board from Perez, in fact, it looked as if it was his fault. But obviously Hulkenberg there stupidly rejoined the track and spinning out Max Verstappen there. But now looking on board from Carlos Sainz to see what happened from his perspective. Once again, I think I wouldn't say it was a race against. I say it was more Perez's fault than Hulkenberg's fault. But now looking behind, Hulkenberg completely wiping out Max Verstappen. But now looking at Bottas here, obviously him going very slowly with Hulkenberg pulling off to the side. But now Roberto Merhi, who was obviously at the back of all of this, he's going to try and make a way past Bottas. Roberto Merhi just crashed straight into the back of Valtteri Bottas. That's why Merhi had to pit in at the end of the lap as well. So Bottas and Merhi coming together as I predicted earlier on, but not in the way I predicted. But as you can see now, on to lap 2, Lewis Hamilton currently leading, but now Lewis Hamilton is pulling off the side of the track. Lewis Hamilton has retired from the British Grand Prix, his home Grand Prix. He was leading by a couple of seconds, and obviously an entry problem here, because he's pausing there. Lewis Hamilton out of the Grand Prix now. A huge battle ensuing here for the lead of the Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Räikkönen, and Nico Rosberg. What a crazy start this has been. I'm just loving this so far. Really hope you guys are as well. Rosberg just about maintaining his position there to Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel. Can Räikkönen and Vettel think about making a move? Going down to turn one, both cars, in fact, dusting around behind Rosberg, putting Rosberg under all sorts of pressure. Räikkönen making a move out the inside of Rosberg. Räikkönen going to try and make the move round the outside. Can he do that? Räikkönen, in fact, made the move up into the lead. Rosberg now down to P2, and Räikkönen has made the lead. But what a crazy start. I just need a breather here. But now on to lap 5. The engineer was telling us that the rain was expected in 10 minutes time, and the skies have clearly darkened around Luffield, more towards the north of the track. I think it is the north of the track anyway where Luffield is. But in terms of the cars around us, Verstappen is a good 15 seconds ahead currently, with Bottas about 6 or 7. I think mine and Bottas' pace at this point was very equal. So again, like Austria, we weren't really gaining on each other, we weren't really losing any time on each other either. But now, quite a few cars coming to the pits, but as you can see, raindrops are now falling and the skies are pretty much dark all around the track. You know, it wouldn't be a British Grand Prix without a bit of rain, obviously. But now onto the back of Will Stevens on the end of lap 8, going on to the beginning of lap 9. More cars into the pits, including our teammate Marcus Ericsson. We're going to make a move up the inside of Will Stevens here, going into the Abbey corner, going into turn 1. Will Stevens leaving more than enough room, but once again, as the AI do, over-exaggerating every single incident when they get overtaken. But actually putting things into perspective now, Nico Rosberg is only a few seconds ahead, so our pace throughout this first stint has actually been quite impressive, considering that Rosberg was battling for the lead earlier on. But now, speaking of the battle for lead, we are currently on board with Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen just ahead, but now Vettel crashing to the back of Roberto Merhi. Vettel's lost his front wing, going into the Beckett's complex, just out of the exit of Copse Corner. I think Vettel literally just drove straight into the back of Roberto Merries. Now, what looked to be a pretty clear battle for lead is now turned into a complete dream for Kimi Raikkonen, because now his teammate Sebastian Vettel has lost his front wing, which means he's going to lose even more time. And Rosberg, because he pitted onto the dry tyres earlier on, means that Raikkonen has a huge lead here, because I believe that Raikkonen hadn't pitted in before he pitted on the intermediate tyres. But this lap, in fact, this is when we are pitting on the intermediate tyres, along with all the other cars in the field. So we've got to try and get out the pits as quickly as possible. Luckily, our garage is one of the ones at the end of the pit lane, so we're not going to be affected by all the cars coming in behind us. But obviously, a lot seems to be double stacking here, so we may make some gains here. But it does seem as if ahead, the two McLarens have actually enjoyed the head, so maybe I think they did extend their stints out as well, and they have waited until the intermediate tyres. So very good strategy call there from McLaren at their home Grand Prix, obviously. So could they potentially get a good result today? But now looking at the race director, currently Raikkonen and Ricciardo are the top two, and they haven't pitted in yet for the intermediate tyres. They've made huge gains here, and I don't think they've lost that much time either by staying out on the dry tyres. So currently the top two is Raikkonen and Ricciardo, but Kvyat currently on the podium in third, with Alonso 4th, Rosberg 5th, and Button 6th, with ourselves in 7th. And Vettel all the way behind in 8th place, obviously losing out because of that front wing loss. But now we are set in the full wet tyres. We're going to be pitting in this lap for the full wet tyres because the conditions are clearly pretty bad out there. You know, in Beckett's complex, you can see so much spray and so much water on the track. I'm surprised the session hasn't even been red flagged. The rain is continuing to pour here at the British Grand Prix. But now on to lap 15. A couple of laps after we pitted in, we have really caught up with Jets Button, bearing down him now with the straight line speed we have in comparison to the McLaren Honda. But wow, just look at that. I think McLaren were expecting the rain here. I know their straight line speed is normally terrible, but they must have been running really high front wing aero there, because the straight line speed that McLaren was really shocking. Literally, you just breezed past him. It just looked like we were going to make a move ever since we exited the Beckett's complex. But now onto lap 18. We currently have Fernando Alonso ahead of us, and Jenson Button is behind. But I believe Sebastian Vettel behind is about to make a move. Let's have a look in a second. Did Vettel make a move on the Wellington Straight going down into Brooklands? Yes, he has. So now we've got to watch out for Sebastian Vettel as we try and close in on Fernando Alonso, who has now been passed by the Mercedes of Nico Rosberg. So I think 5th position is our best bet for today's British Grand Prix. Now going on with Daniel Ricciardo, the 2nd place man. In fact, he's pulling off in the same place as Lewis Hamilton, and Ricciardo has retired from the British Grand Prix, the 2nd place man. And we are now into 5th place here, and Fernando Alonso is now within striking distance, and we could potentially steal 4th position here. That is absolutely insane. But now going through the final corner at Club, Sebastian Vettel was caught right up here on lap 21, I think this is. But now Vettel going to try and go inside of turn 1, going into the Abbey corner as Vettel pulled off that move. Not quite. We're getting so much oversteer here on the wet tyres. Obviously, once again, just like Austria, we're not really running a wet setup here, but it doesn't seem to be affecting us as much. Now Vettel passed us here on lap 20. He's now up to 5th place, and perhaps the best position for us now is 5th place if Vettel catches up with Alonso as quickly as possible. But this is just crazy here. When I'm looking on board with Sergio Perez, for some reason, Alonso's ahead. I believe it's past Maldonado, is running very slowly, but Perez, in fact, puts Maldonado into a spin very strangely. So I'm not sure what that was about from Maldonado. I'm not sure why he was going so slowly. But now going on board here with Danny Kvyat, the 3rd place man after being overtaken by Nico Rosberg. Now Kvyat is approaching Maldonado. In fact, that's a huge accident there. Huge accident here between Kvyat and Maldonado. Kvyat almost launching Maldonado into the air. Now going on board, a huge crash there. I don't know how that didn't destroy Kvyat or Maldonado's tyres. Maldonado, in fact, the problem he had was a front right punch. Not sure how that was caused, but almost being launched into the air. Absolutely crazy here with the AI. But the question is now, did Danny Kvyat get any damage from that incident? Because if that's the case, then maybe a podium is on the cards here if Alonso holds up Vettel even more. In fact, we're looking through Stone now, approaching the cars ahead. In fact, it's Kvyat going very slowly. And in fact, Kvyat is driving off the pit lane here. He obviously has damage. We're going to go around the outside of Vettel and possibly Fernando Alonso. Vettel currently trying to defend on the inside. Felipe Nasr has the inside line for Vale and Club Corner. Now he is up to 4th place, so potentially after what happened on the first lap, after pretty much ruling out any possibility of even a podium or even points in today's Grand Prix, we could potentially be sealing a podium here at the British Grand Prix. What a crazy, bonkers race this has been at today's British Grand Prix. Absolutely insane. But now Vettel behind us here. Felipe Nasr really struggling for any sort of grip. These wet tyres are clearly going off. We've been on these tyres for almost 10 laps now. They are beginning to go off at quite a rate as we understeer out of Luffield, and Vettel has made that move stick. He is now into 4th position, but still this battle for 3rd is on between Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel and Felipe Nasr. Button also not that far behind either, but I doubt Jenson Button, with the pace as the McLaren Honda, I very much doubt he'll be able to catch up with us and join in with this battle for 3rd place. We got very lucky there with instance with both the Red Bulls, of retirement for Daniel Ricciardo, and obviously an instant with Pastor Maldonado for Danica Kvyat, which caused him to pit in for a new front wing. But in fact, Sebastian Vettel's made the move round the outside of Fernando Alonso up into 3rd position. We need to dive inside of Alonso, which we have done if we want to have any chance of the podium. But Alonso has in fact spun us around here, and Fernando Alonso has gotten away with that completely. How the hell did that happen? I'm not quite sure. We're going to have a look at a replay, but Vettel made his way around the outside of Alonso. Very good move from the Ferrari driver, and then Alonso completely spun us out, which luckily didn't cost us of any further position. Now, looking at a replay of the instant, we dived up the inside of Fernando Alonso, desperate to get that P4 so we could challenge Vettel. But by the looks of it, it seems as if Alonso actually understeered into us. So let's have a look from the onboard shot of Alonso now, going up into the curb there, steering out quite wide. And in fact, I think that was actually more Alonso's fault, because that was very poor on his part there from the McLaren Honda driver. I'd be surprised if he didn't have a penalty for that, so that's very interesting there to see if he actually has a penalty at the end of this Grand Prix. Our engine didn't tell me anything, so I can only assume that he hasn't. We're going to have to wait and see when the race results come up. But now onto that 26, Felipe Nasr once again. Felipe Nasr just cannot leave us alone in this series. Felipe Nasr really caught us up, because our tyres simply just went off the cliff. Now Nasr making the move up the inside of Brooklands. Could he potentially seal 5th position, and will it get worse for us with a 6th place result? But now going into the bird's eye view shot here, the aerial shot, the helicopter shot. Now Nasr has in fact made that move stick back up the inside of Felipe Nasr, and Nasr I think is just about sealed 5th position. A very big scare there for Felipe Nasr, obviously from his compatriot Felipe Nasr, really being quite a huge threat there on the final lap. But now going to come around the final corner now for a very respectable 5th position, considering what happened on the first lap. But what a mad race that was. Absolute madness, craziness once again in this series on F1 2015 Career Mode episode. Really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Once again, obviously Felipe Nasr, sorry. That's the problem, you see, when Felipe Nasr and Felipe Nasr battle. It's just an absolute nightmare. But once again, as you can see, actually, interestingly, Kimi Raikkonen got 2 10-second time penalties. I can only assume it was from this instant here. Now, looking from the start, Kvyat gets the front right punch. This is after the Maldonado incident, by the way. And Mary currently approaching the Red Bull driver. Mary going to try and make the move around the outside of him, going into the chapel onto the hangar straight. But Mary getting extremely close there to Danica Kvyat. Incredibly close there. Kvyat completely turning in on Roberto Mary. But I think that's how Raikkonen got his penalties, ignoring yellow flags there and overtook under them. But once again, guys, as I said, a very respectful 5th position considering what happened at the start. And obviously, we basically finished where we started, so it's a very good result indeed. And now looking at the Drivers' Championship, we are back up ahead of Bottas. Once again, not having the graceful race today, Valtteri Bottas, obviously after the first lap incident he had. And in the Constructors, I believe we are still in 4th place with the Sauber F1 team. Marcus actually once again not getting any points for us today. But anyway, guys, if you have enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. My voice is gone, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.